In the graveyard of playoff chokes, there are some pretty big tombstones. 28-3, 35-3, 24-0. But there is one epic choke that not many people even remember, and it happened only a few short years ago. This is the story of the seemingly insurmountable playoff blown lead that nobody talks about, and it's coming up right after this. This is the most wonderful time of the year. No, not Halloween or the holidays. All four freaking major sports are going on at once. Yes, with the NBA back in action, you have more ways to play and more ways to win on Underdog, where you can use my code 5points, support this channel, and get a first-time deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Right now, it's Boostober, so every day has a new promotion like unlimited site-wide boosts on NBA-only entries. Personally, I love Pick'em this time of year. You can mix and match. You simply pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they will go higher or lower. And if you go 5 for 5, you can win 20 times your money. Tonight and this weekend, I have Jordan Poole lower than 18.5 points because he sucks, Will Reichard making more than 1.5 field goals, Jack Flaherty getting out of the first inning without giving up a run, and Andre Vasilevsky with more than 25 saves. So after this video, head to UnderdogFantasy.com and use my promo code 5points, or hit the link below and get started right away. Again, you can support this channel big time by heading over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use my promo code 5points and get a first-time deposit match of up to $1,000. We got like 25 activations. Let's get up to 30. You can do it. The 2022 AFC wildcard matchup between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Chargers became one of the most dramatic and somehow forgettable moments in NFL playoff history. The game will forever be remembered by some for Jacksonville's stunning 27-point comeback, culminating in a thrilling 31-30 victory. It was the kind of win that promised a bright future for a team recovering from the wreckage of the Urban Meyer era, now led by the steady hand of Doug Peterson. But as the next season unfolded, both the Jaguars and Peterson would find themselves grappling with disappointment and unmet expectations, while the Chargers' own collapse has had lasting repercussions. But before we get to now, let's figure out what happened then. The Jaguars entered the 2022 season looking to rebound from one of the darkest chapters in franchise history, the disastrous tenure of Urban Meyer. Meyer's stint as head coach in 2021 was filled with controversies and dysfunction, ultimately resulting in a 3-14 season and his firing midway through his first season. Jacksonville was in disarray, more so than usual, needing not just a roster overhaul, but a cultural reset. Enter Doug Peterson, a former Super Bowl winning coach, hired to stabilize the team and develop second-year quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Peterson's impact was immediate. Lawrence, who had been hampered by the chaos of his rookie season, thrived under Peterson's tutelage, throwing for over 4,100 yards and leading the Jaguars to a 9-8 record and an AFC South Division title. The team's turnaround was dramatic, and the playoff berth marked their return to relevance in the NFL. It was the first time the Jags had tasted the postseason since Blake Bortles shed a single tear in Foxborough. On the other side, the Los Angeles Chargers had high hopes for 2022. With a 10-7 record, the Chargers were looking to make a deep playoff run. Quarterback Justin Herbert had solidified himself as one of the league's brightest stars, and the team's offense, rounded out by Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams, was one of the most dangerous in the league. With a defense led by Joey Bosa and Derwin James, the Chargers were seen as legitimate contenders in the AFC. However, Brandon Staley made a rather questionable decision the week before the playoffs started. Get used to this. With their seat already guaranteed, Staley played his starters against the Denver Broncos, and in that loss, the offense lost wide receiver Mike Williams to injury. It was one of the more questionable coaching moves in recent memory. Not exactly a tactical genius, that Staley guy. The Jaguars and Chargers had met during the regular season in 2022, and it was a lopsided affair, to say the least. Trevor Lawrence threw 3 touchdown passes and played turnover-free ball in a 28-point beating of LA on the road. there was plenty of reason to think the Jags could win this game at home. Then, the first half happened. As the wild card game kicked off, the Chargers quickly asserted control. Trevor Lawrence, once a national champion at Clemson, appeared rattled by the intensity of the moment and threw 4 interceptions in the first half, 3 of which were picked off by cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. The Jaguars looked overwhelmed, and the Chargers capitalized on every mistake, building a seemingly insurmountable 27-0 lead in the second quarter. Herbert was in command, guiding the Chargers' offense with ease. Austin Eckler punched in 2 touchdowns, and the Los Angeles defense looked impenetrable, suffocating Lawrence and shutting down the Jaguars' run game. The crowd in Jacksonville was silent, expecting the worst. Even though they had turned the ship around, they were still the same old Jags. But just before halftime, the Jaguars got a little glimmer of hope. Lawrence connected with tight end Evan Ingram for a 9-yard touchdown. Surprised he didn't drop it, cutting the deficit to 27-7 as they headed into the locker room. The score felt like a small consolation, but it would become the spark that ignited one of the greatest comebacks in NFL playoff history. In the second half, the Jaguars came alive. Head coach Doug Peterson refused to let his team give up, and Lawrence shook off his early struggles to play with more confidence than one of those cringe influencers who approaches random women on the street. God, those guys are cringe. On their first drive of the third quarter, Lawrence hit Marvin Jones Jr. for a 6-yard touchdown, trimming the lead to 27-14. The momentum had shifted, and Jacksonville's defense began to frustrate Herbert and the Chargers' offense, forcing punts and missed opportunities. However, Dicker the kicker would add a field goal, giving the Chargers some much-needed breathing room. Lawrence kept pushing. He connected with Zay Jones for a 39-yard touchdown to bring the score to 30-20. And suddenly, the unthinkable seemed possible. The Jaguars' defense tightened, and the Chargers began to falter under the pressure. Of course, their play calling got conservative. Jacksonville then mounted another drive with Lawrence finding Christian Kirk for a 9-yard score. After a successful 2-point conversion, the Jaguars were down just 30-28, and the stadium came alive with belief. The defining moment came late in the fourth quarter. On a crucial 4th and 1 from the Chargers' 41-yard line, Peterson made the bold decision to go for it instead of kicking a field goal, a move that would be more like Brandon Staley's type of thing. Travis Etienne took the handoff. The Jags didn't just convert, he raced 25 yards down the sideline, setting up kicker Riley Patterson for a 36-yard field goal. Game, set, lead blown.
Here we go for the win.
As Patterson's kick sailed through the uprights, the Jags earned a stunning 31-30 victory, and the only time all night they had held a lead. And it happened with zeros on the clock. The Jaguars had pulled off the 3rd largest comeback in NFL history, sending the Chargers home in disbelief. Al Michaels, of course, was enthralled by the moment. You would think for both teams the future would be bright, but the aftermath would prove just how cruel the NFL is, and contribute to why nobody ever talks about this game. The thrilling wild card victory sent Jacksonville to the divisional round, where they faced the eventual Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Even though the Jaguars fought hard, they ultimately fell 27-20 to the eventual Super Bowl champions. Lawrence played well, but the Jaguars were outmatched by a team that barely has to try until the AFC title game every year. Despite the loss, the 2022 season was hailed as a massive success, and rightfully so. The Jaguars had gone from the NFL's basement to a playoff team with a bright future under Peterson and Lawrence in just 1 year. For the Chargers, however, the loss to Jacksonville was nothing short of devastating. Leading 27-0 late in the second quarter only to lose had exposed their inability to finish games. The collapse cast a long shadow over their 2023 season as confidence eroded and questions about the team's mental toughness and coaching grew louder. The 2023 season was a disappointment for the Chargers, who failed to recover from their playoff implosion. Injuries to key players like Joey Bosa and Keenan Allen derailed their momentum, while the defense struggled to hold up. Head coach Brandon Staley, already under scrutiny for his decisions during the playoff collapse and his entire fucking coaching career, faced mounting pressure as the team took a step back. He was fired. Justin Herbert continued to shine individually, but the team around him faltered, and by season's end, sweeping changes seemed inevitable. The Jacksonville comeback called to mind the Buffalo Bills' legendary 32-point comeback against the Houston Oilers in the '92 playoffs. The Bills, however, capitalized on their momentum, reaching the Super Bowl for a third consecutive year. And we know what happened there. The Jaguars were unable to carry over their momentum into the next week or even into the next season. While the Jaguars' 2022 playoff success suggested they were a team on the rise, the 2023 season told a different story. Jacksonville, expected to build on its momentum, instead struggled to capitalize on its newfound potential. Trevor Lawrence, entering his third year, was expected to make a leap, but the team around him couldn't sustain the level of performance necessary to contend with the AFC's elite. The Jaguars' offense sputtered, with the offensive line struggling to protect Lawrence, and the defense, which had been opportunistic in 2022, took a step back. As the 2023 season wore on, Doug Peterson still looked like an upgrade to Urban Meyer, but he started to lose his grip on the strong foundation he had built a year prior. Once hailed as the coach who had restored credibility to a broken franchise, Peterson now found himself under increasing pressure. Ultimately, the lack of progression in Trevor Lawrence's third season raised the most concerns. Fast forward to today, and the Jags are a bottom feeder in the AFC South, and the Chargers are middling along with the new coach in Jim Harbaugh. The 2022 AFC wildcard game was supposed to be the launch pad for the Jaguars' rise to perennial contention, but the 2023 season made it clear there were still significant flaws in the organization. This game has been largely forgotten, as it's a footnote in NFL lore, and that's because at the end of the day, it just didn't change the Jaguars' fortune. But for one day, they could dream.